Welcome once again to Conquering Retirement with Northern Alliance Financial. Here today with Peter Hansen, financial advisor, Lance Gilman, CEO and financial advisor, also an author, also a radio host, also takes care of client. Wow, Lance, many different hats of yours.
I guess so. Always great to be here with you, Spud.
Thank you so much, and Lance as well. Fantastic to see you. Lots of the different things we're going to talk about, but you know, there are programs like this that run all across the nation, but we broadcast here right in the great state of Maine. Derek, you say that you literally grew up here. What's it like for folks retiring here in the state, and you enjoy helping people retire here where you grew up?
I did, yeah. I grew up in Biddeford. Both my parents were bankers. My father was a banker for 40 years, and my mom maybe 25 or 30. We're working right now in the Saco office right across the river. It's wonderful. You know, when I first started doing this years ago, I would be meeting people that knew my parents, that knew my family, and it was an easy transition for them to say, oh, well, we know your family, yeah, you know, let's do business together. But, you know, those days progress, and it's just nice to be back in the community where I grew up. You know, grew up in the state of Maine. My wife and I moved out to New Hampshire for a little while, went to college in a little ways away, came back because we had the opportunity to try and look at other places to live. Do we want to live in a warmer climate? You know, what are people like in other parts of the country? A lot of people that leave Maine, they eventually come back. And that's really the same thing, yeah.
And it's like vacation land. That's the whole name of the state. So hundreds of thousands, millions of people come to Maine every single summer, every single year to experience the beauty and the uniqueness of Maine and the beauty of the coastline and the ocean and the mountains and the foliage in the fall. And so that's why they call it vacation land. It's just millions of people come every single year to visit this great state. Why not be on permanent vacation when you go into your retirement, vacation
7 days a week, absolutely, not have to do that commute to work. But we also want to be quiet about it. If you are retired here and loving it, don't tell anybody else. There's enough folks here right now. But yeah, I mean, you probably sometimes help people have that snowbird lifestyle, either down to the warmer climates or maybe staying here, downsizing. I want to talk about some of the elements that you guys do to help people be and stay retired right here in Maine. So if you don't mind, I want to start with some basics. Coming in, you and I have talked about this before, some folks might be nervous about calling a phone number and coming in. What do they need? What do they need to bring? Or maybe even embarrassed because maybe they haven't taken enough steps. In your opinion, do they have to have all of their ducks in a row before they call the phone number and come in?
No, absolutely not. In fact, we would expect you not to have all of your ducks in a row before you come in. That's why you're coming in. Because you're saying, this isn't my thing. I'm not a financial person. I've worked hard all my life. I've saved, I pared down my debt. I'm not familiar with all these things like budget planning and Social Security, tax implications, long-term care, risk management, Medicare, estate, legal planning, and then, of course, my portfolio. I need help with all this stuff. So no, absolutely not. We don't expect, we wouldn't even hope. Well, we might hope, but we wouldn't expect that you'd have all these things in order. That's why you're going to call. That's why you're going to reach out.
Right.
And so 9 out of 10 people that are actually coming in for an appointment, there is absolutely zero expectation that you have any of this stuff done. What we want to do is start to figure out where you are, where you want to be, and then help set that trajectory to help you get there. Right, Pete?
That's right. However, after the first appointment, after we met with folks, there are some expectations because we're going to, on the first and second appointment, talk about budget. We want to talk about taxes, Social Security, Medicare, long-term care, estate planning. So we will have them do some homework. And if they need some help with some of the homework, we'll go ahead and help them with that. But as far as, we're asking that they eventually bring in their statements so we can see where they are. And like Lance said, based on their goals and what they have, how do we get them there? That's the beginning of the premise of getting them to where they want to go.
That really does sound like a lot of information, starting with long-term care and all of those things. But I want to stop even right there. In that first meeting, have you had folks come in to you and say, all right, I understand you want to know those things, but I want to know about you first. Can you tell me about your returns, or who do you typically help? What happens when you're in that situation? Is that the right kind of fit, or is that somebody who doesn't really realize the holistic planning of your approach?
Well, we might have an advantage in the fact that we've been on the radio for a good period of time. We're on TV, and a lot of them have had exposure to us in the workshops. A lot of them go to our educational workshops, so they have exposure to us there. And more often than not, they'll go back home and ask friends, or in fact, go online and see, all of the resources they have to find out what we're about. An example of what I'm talking about is last year, 50% of our clients came in from referrals from current clients. So yes, but when people are asking those questions, it's certainly easy to answer, but more often than not, they've already had a taste or heard of us before they're coming in.
Lance, is that a fair question for somebody to come in and say, what kind of returns, what is your performance? Or when they're looking for a retirement specialist, is that not something you hear very frequently?
Well, it's not something that we're, obviously, when you're looking for that kind of answer to a question, you're just seeking a number. That doesn't mean anything. It's arbitrary. It's like these numbers that you hear, like a lot of these social media sites, like you need to have $1 million, you need to have $1.5 million, and I'm looking for a 7% return. It's meaningless. Right? You got to start. The first question that we're going to find out is we're going to ask the question to the person coming in, and we're going to say, what are your goals? What do you want to achieve?
That's right.
What does retirement in its perfect state for you look like? And that kind of will set people back a little bit, right? Because they're like, you're asking me about my goals? Yeah, what about your goal? Well, I haven't really thought about those. Well, don't you think that's important? Because until we can define what those goals actually are, how are we going to know that we're successful in our retirement plan? Because that sets the stage for everything else, or it should, Spike. It's not about a number, an arbitrary number. It's not about an arbitrary return somebody throws out. It's your goals. Right? What are your goals? Because then as fiduciary advisors, we want to direct all of our efforts to helping you as best we possibly can achieve those goals. That's how you conquer retirement.
That was a very nice segue, and I'm going to parody onto that one. We're going to take a very short message break right here. We do want to get you a complimentary copy of Conquering Retirement. Call the phone number when you come in and we start this process with you, which we're going to continue to talk about more after this break. You'll get a complimentary copy of the book. We'll get you started on your own retirement plan. You can ask us whatever questions you want, but we're going to ask you questions too. Like, what are your goals? What do you want your retirement to look like? What would your spouse like your retirement to look like? Are you going to stay here in the great state of Maine? Are you going to be traveling around the world? Or you want to go to some warm weather areas as well? What do you want it to look like? That's what we want to help you create. Call the phone number you see at the bottom of the screen. More Conquering Retirement with Lance and Peter right after this.
Good morning, Ben.
Good morning, Ben. Hey, birthday party for Carol and 5. Happy birthday to you.
Good morning, Ben. Happy Monday.
Daryl's birthday, be there every square. Happy birthday to you. You can see from our quarterly report on slide number 62, we're trending in the right direction. All signs point to a very positive outlook for the next several years. If you peel back the onion...
Ben, do you have anything to add?
The work never seems to end until the day it finally does. Call today to get your free written financial plan so you may live every day to the fullest and enjoy the retirement of your dreams.
Welcome back to Conquering Retirement with the team from Northern Alliance Financial right here in Maine. Here with Peter Hansen, Lance Gilman, Financial Advisors. Lance is the CEO. I'm your host, Spike Spangle. Today we're talking about, what goes into the actual financial plan. What kind of things do we need? So, that first meeting, it's a little bit of a getting to know one another. But I'll go ahead and ask you, what kind of things do we need to really get that financial plan in place? What kind of statements,
Sure.
is it The mortgage is paid off, obviously the investments. What else helps round it out?
Well,
for
we
you?
need their expenses now and what we project their expenses to be in retirement. We have to have an understanding of cash flow. How much are they going to need to live the lifestyle that they want in retirement? We're going to need, if in fact they qualify for Social Security, we need their statements. And if they don't have them, we send them to www.ssa.gov to garner them. They can get those numbers to us. Let's see, we don't need a copy of their taxes, but we do want to take a look and ask the questions whether or not they have a will and or a trust. Not because if they don't, we can help them with that, but we find the importance in that, and that we'll send them to an estate planning firm so they can go get a complimentary visit with them as well. That's a crucial piece that, although we're not subject to making that happen, we find it very important to have the legal protection for their estate.
The taxes and the investments, totally understand. Lance, how many times, though, when people come in, do you find that they don't have even a simple will? Something that they haven't put together or something they haven't reviewed in a very long time?
It's quite frequent, actually, that we would say, I would say at least 50%. Or more of people coming in without basic legal documentation. And the beauty about the way that we have structured Northern Alliance is through the affiliates that we have, the professional affiliates, that cover the entire state. So if someone comes in, Spike, and they don't, like they're one of those 50% that doesn't have a will or any kind of legal documents, just because they called in, just because they came in and met with one of the advisors, got a copy of the free book, whatever. We analyze where they are and what their goals are, and we realize they don't have any legal documentation. We will get them a complimentary meeting with an estate planning attorney somewhere in the state. They don't have to pay a dime for that, not a penny, Spike. And when you go to a estate planning attorney,
I know.
You are on the clock.
Absolutely. My father had to do this for my grandmother or something, just to make the phone call, make the appointment. They wanted $500 on a credit card over the phone to make the appointment. So you're saying you can get somebody in, speak with an estate planning attorney, just to do a review at no cost?
Just to do a review if they have legal documents. But if they don't have any legal documents, it's like, where do I start? What do I even begin with? And they'll help them to structure that. Now, that initial consultation is complimentary. If they have to do subsequent work, then that's obviously going to be cost. There will be costs associated with that. But that initial meeting to determine what they actually need or what they're looking for is completely complimentary.
I was pressing you in the first segment. I was talking about returns. You know, somebody coming in for the very first time, and you look like you were going to kick me off the set. And because I think people are asking the wrong questions, maybe should people walk into a firm and say, what kind of services can you provide? I'm trying to wonder for the viewer out there, what should they ask to somebody? Because you just now said how you can set them up with a legal expert or somebody to talk to. What about the tax element? Is this something we handle in-house? How does that get worked into the plan?
Well, again, you know, we're not CPAs, and very few of us actually do much bookkeeping. But given the profession that we're in, we work with partners. I work with a partner in a tax professional in Saco, and we work with a big firm in Portland. Sometimes we need different people that need different aspects and a little bit more advanced planning. So we'll send them over to Portland for the firm. But again, that initial consultation doesn't cost anything to go get that plan set up.
Right. So for the viewer out there, going into somebody's office for the first time, it might be, what services do you provide? Or what would my client experience? I guess, Lance, I'm wondering, as CEO, who determines whether somebody becomes a client? The person sitting across from you or you? Who's the decision maker in the process?
Well, I think it's got to be mutual, wouldn't you say, Pete?
Yeah,
because, I mean, when somebody comes in and we do that initial analysis, and we're looking at their portfolio, obviously we're looking at their budget, tax consideration, Social Security, Maine State retirement, federal employee system, retirement system if they're federal employees. We're looking at their Medicare and long-term care risk management, all that stuff. We're looking at all that stuff, right? Because as fiduciary advisors and comprehensive planners, we leave no stone untouched. Right, we want to turn over every stone to make sure that plan is as comprehensive as possible. However, it could be a situation where somebody comes in and they've got all of their ducks in a row. We have kind of like the wheel of fortune that we call it, right, Pete?
That's right.
Where we look at all of these, and it's just like each little aspect of the pie, the portfolio, the budget, the tax considerations, Social Security, long-term care, risk management, Medicare, estate and legal planning. And what we do, we use as kind of a red light, yellow, and green. And if all of these slices are green, that means their whole portfolio and their comprehensive plan is pretty well done. Now, that doesn't happen very often, Spike, where somebody has just got all this pretty well nailed down. And if they do, we're going to just basically pat them on the back and say, you did absolutely great. There's really not a whole lot we can do to improve your situation, but it doesn't happen a lot. But if that's the way it is, just call us if you have any questions about any of this stuff, but you're solid.
You mentioned something, and I want to ask you, one, looking at the wonderful ring on your hand, I want to thank you for your service to our country, for what you have done. But you mentioned federal employees and government employees, military. That is a whole more complex system. Are you able to help and review even there? Because I know that there's different ages. You can retire younger, earlier, but it's more complicated. Some people go back into service. That's very difficult. Do you work also with the government plans? Or
yeah, sure, absolutely. And all of our advisors are trained to help any federal or state employee. And we all collaborate with each other as well. So if there is a case that is unique and it's something new that an advisor hasn't seen, every single Monday we have a stand-up meeting with all the advisors and we talk through these cases and we say, okay, Peter, what do you got going on this week? And he's going to bring up to the team any of these cases that he hasn't seen before. And then if he needs some help or some guidance from another advisor that has specialized in that particular thing, we're going to talk that through to get that particular person the most robust plan possible.
Northern Alliance, you are independent, but you are not solo. You have a group synergy of being able to share ideas with one another. I love that. And I'm glad that you're able to do that. And how many offices now around the state of Maine?
We have about 10 total offices. So we're in double digits now. But the reason for that is the state is pretty broad, there's a vast, you can pretty much drive from the southern to the northern border is probably, 6-7 hours.
We've run workshops from Kittery all the way to Madawaska. And we have affiliated offices at some insurance companies, some law firms, in which we call an office. But with the two major offices are Saco and Auburn and Brewer. But then we have affiliated offices because we cover the state.
Right. Yeah. We're about to go out to break. We do want folks to come in face to face. And it just, again, because I liked what you said about this a couple of programs ago, we really do prefer the in person. It is a large state. We have offices all over the place. But that phone call, that drive that might be 20 or 30 minutes, it's worth it to meet in person, isn't it, Lance?
Oh, absolutely. And most people, especially if they're in the northern territories, like they're in the county or something like that, and they will actually choose 99% of the time that even if they have to drive an hour and a half to meet with an actual advisor and talk face to face, they'll make that drive.
Right. And for you making that drive, for you calling that phone number, and for you making that commitment to us, there is no cost for an appointment. There's no cost for us to run a diagnostic. We just want to see, have your investments worked for you? What is your income stream going to possibly look like in retirement? How can we help you ensure not running out of money in retirement? And for all of that, we do that at no cost. The only cost is the few seconds it takes for you to dial this phone number you see right here and make your appointment at any one of our 10 offices across the state. Call right now for your own complimentary retirement plan review. More Conquering Retirement with Lance and Peter right after this.
As a good saver, you've been putting away money during your working years. Studies find that the biggest fear of retirees is running out of money. Market volatility isn't just the downward movement of stock prices, it's the size and frequency of change. The more dramatic the ups and downs, the higher the volatility. This can put savers who are newly retired or a few years away from being retired at greater risk. Today's generation of retirees is not receiving traditional pensions as our parents or grandparents did. Instead, we have retirement accounts such as 401ks or 403bs. These accounts typically expose your money to market risk. The last thing you want right before retirement is to lose a portion of the money you need for income. But how do you turn these accounts into a retirement income? Is it safe to keep all your retirement money sitting in the stock market? The last thing you want is to lose a portion of the money you need for income due to market loss. By working with a financial professional, you can learn how to turn a portion of your savings into an income stream for life and income for the life of your spouse if you're married. We all have moments in our lives when we wish we had taken action sooner. Don't let procrastination reign on your retirement parade. Act now before it's too late. Please call our office to set up your no-cost, no-obligation retirement income review today.
Welcome back to Conquering Retirement by Northern Alliance Financial. I'm here with Peter Hansen, Lance Gilman, financial advisors right here in Maine. I'm your host, Spike Spangle, and this is always one of my favorite segments. We've got our viewer questions, our consumer questions. I always love knowing how you guys untangle the knots, if you can. So I've got David in South Portland. He says he's 64, getting ready to retire next year. Congratulations to you. I owe approximately $150,000 on my house with no other debts. I have about $800,000 in retirement savings, and I'll get about $2,000 a month from a pension, and $3,000 a month from Social Security. Does it make sense to pay off the mortgage? David, wonderful question. Love all the detail. It was kind of a surprise ending to me. I didn't know where he was going with that. Well, 150, 800,000. But I mean, it sounds like he's going to get a pension and some Social Security. Should he be in a hurry to pay off that mortgage?
It could be that it makes sense to pay off the mortgage. However, when we're looking at current rates right now, the first thing I would ask David is what is the rate on your mortgage? And that would be a big determining factor. But with the way rates are right now, I think around 7 to 8% perhaps
they're high.
climbing. Yeah,
they're high right now.
And let's say that your mortgage rate is 3%. It's kind of like free money right now. It depends. Is David married? Is she still working? So there's a lot to take into account. But my first question would be, what is your rate? Sometimes I like the idea of going into retirement zero debt, but sometimes it just doesn't feasibly make sense.
I'm going to go out on a limb here and say that he probably didn't get this mortgage last year.
Right.
So maybe he's got,
probably
at a 3 or a 4.
Yeah.
So let's say, for argument's sake, without knowing Peter, that it is at a 3 or 3.5%. Should he still be in a hurry to pay off the $150,000?
Well, I think that's a goal that most people have, and it's a noble goal, but it's something, as Peter said, we would want to look at that. We would want to look at the expenses. He's got really some good residual income bases with his pension and his Social Security. He's got another $800,000 saved there, which could actually produce even more income for him. So it's not enough information to really answer the question. I would say, David, come on in, let's get that analysis done for you so that we can look at what your actual income and your expenses are both now and in retirement. Then we can help you to make a more informed decision. Is
that what most mornings and afternoons are like? Is that people come and they've got a very specific question, but you actually have to broaden it out? I mean, this is great. Should I pay off my mortgage? But I don't know what he spends per month. We both don't know if he's married or not.
We don't know what his budget is. We don't know what he, in the other sense of the equation, he says he's got $800,000 in his retirement savings.
What is that?
Well, right. What is that? What kind of chassis is that in?
Is it making 12% or what?
Right.
Then that'd be foolish.
Does he have Roth components? Does he have pre-tax? Obviously, he would probably have some element of pre-tax. But the other thing is, what's not on here is, does he have any non-qualified, just regular savings?
That's right.
And what's that earning? And so there's so many factors, Spike, that we don't have enough information. But it looks good. It looks like you've really done a great job, David, in kind of piecing together many things in your retirement. We just need a little bit more information to help you answer that question.
I've got another one here. I like it. We've got a few minutes left in the program. I'm a nurse with Maine Health. I have the old and new pension with Maine Health Plus, $270,000 with Lincoln Financial 403B. Some of my peers are taking the annuity form of the pension, and others are taking the lump sum. Which should I do? I love it. It's a very specific question, but boy, there's a lot that I'd still like to know about Diane there before answering that. But lump sum or take the annuity?
Yeah, I don't think I'd answer that question just like right off the cuff. It's not enough information, I would say, because here's the issue. If, depending on whether or not she's pared down her debt over time and basically her Social Security might be able to cover whatever her operational need is. If that's true and we don't need that additional income source, then maybe we do take the lump sum in that particular case and then buffer her retirement savings from $270 up to maybe $400,000 or $500,000.
I must have 17 clients that have come in from the Maine Health with the 403B, and they've been there long enough to have a pension, never mind the old one and the new one. What I've found with the Maine Health pension, and maybe I shouldn't get so specific, but I'm so familiar with it, is that in this particular pension, there is no cost of living adjustment. Once you turn on the annuity from the pension, that's flat. It stays. There is no cost of living adjustment. So oftentimes I found that it makes sense to take the lump sum, put it into a fixed index retirement vehicle when they start drawing an income that has not a cost of living adjustment, but an index credit. So when the market does well, they get a cost of living adjustment. Been very successful with that.
That is huge. I'd really like to repeat that. And as of this airing, with the information you have,
correct,
you say there's no cost of living adjustment.
That's right.
And for simple thing, even your Social Security has a cost of living adjustment if it applies.
Which means essentially with no cost of living adjustment, with the average cost of living basically inflationary rates of going about 3%, where there's no cost of living adjustment to adjust for that inflation, it means that those dollars are losing value every single year, every single month, every single day. So that is a huge factor that we would want to consider.
So I would ask Diane not to pull the trigger, give a call, let's get some more specifics, let's see it on paper and how it plays out and what the details are, but then we can make it.
The great thing is I love about both of these questions is people at least asking it before it's done.
Right.
I'm sure you've dealt with this before. I've made this decision. What do you think? Was this the right way to go? You're like, I wish we could have consulted beforehand.
Yeah, it's just like taking Social Security. A lot of times people just without any guidance just fire for their Social Security because they talk to somebody at the water cooler at work. And then to try to undo that, unfortunately, once you've made that decision, is very, very difficult.
And you can't really undo anything with this
pension. Once you fire that and you say, this is what I want to do, that's it, and we're going to live with it. Whether it has a cost of living adjustment or not, that's what we're going to get. And in this particular case, that means what we've just plugged into is ensuring that our money in the future will be less value for us.
That's right. Anybody that has a lump sum pension, do your homework. In other words, get advice from folks other than folks that you work with or your peers. Talk to
and even outside of that plan administrator. Just get an objective outside opinion. Lance, Peter, thank you so very much for letting me join you in the program. Folks, call and get your own retirement plan review. If you don't even have a retirement plan, but you have investments, you're wondering what to do next, give us a call. We'll do a complimentary review. When you come in, you'll also get a free copy of the brand new book, Conquering Retirement. Thank you so much for watching. We'll be back again next week.